All right, y'all. What's going on? It's your boy Izzy Bake Oven. What's up, y'all? So today it's a little different. All right. Now, yeah, I used to hear ads run through my stuff for other people. All right. This is probably the first real time the ad is for me. All right. So PSA Prodigy Sport Advantage Stations has expanded far beyond just the podcast. It is now a writing service. All right. And at that, a ghostwriting service. So we do it anonymously and take care of your needs. All right. Homework assistant, product and profile descriptions, grant writing, resumes, cover letters, templates, books, ghostwriter book too. Anything you can think of, articles, all that good stuff. PSA the Ghostwriter Solution can do it. So go over to psahthepodcast.com and you can see all the services there with all their descriptions. Okay, because I know I missed some. And also you can reach out to me at theprodigyperspective@gmail.com and we can take care of all of that for you too. Peace. What's up, y'all? What's going on? Now, it's season 7. Wanted. All right. That's the thing. That's what we're going for. Now, y'all see me got the new background going on. It's a little wrinkle, but that's side to side. That's side, but that's okay, because guess what? I don't care. Also, I got a webcam, so now the camera popping. I'm gonna see how I do with this background because I'm trying out some new stuff, but we'll see how it goes. Because so if this is your first episode, you're tuning in for season 7. You saw me last season or last episode. I was at the studio. Shout out to Creators Guild, Houston, Texas, and shout out to my boy LP, who is also one of the hosts of the Poor Horseman podcast. He was trying to set it up last season. It didn't work, but And as I said last week, I won't be there every week, but you can definitely catch me there doing some interviews there with local people in the Houston area. And then I'll do something again by myself too up there because it was fun. So, yeah. So this season is Wanted. And I want every episode this season to be a trigger in some way. That's the goal. I'm not even going to lie to you. So before I get to rambling, I got my cup back because I'm at home. So we got that going. Now, what's in it, that ain't none of your business. But this week's meme, all right, so this episode is centered around good relationships, positive relationships, and the need for them, okay? And with that, here's the thing. I think sometimes we live in a society where people feel like, oh, I don't need this person. I can do whatever I want to do. And you just can't. You just can't do that. You can't do that because you just never know who you're going to need. You never know you just never know. I think that my issue with this generation is we feel like, how I want to say this. I think this generation feels that, I don't want to say this. I think this generation feels entitled. And like my parents are not millennials. I'm a millennial. And I know I've heard them say kind of comments like, oh, y'all think y'all can just do whatever y'all want. You think y'all can say whatever y'all want, do whatever y'all want. And, we do that with jobs as well. Now, I'm going to get into my story when we get into that in a minute about that. But that's a funny story. That one's actually hilarious. But if you've been keeping up with me, because I got a lot of new people, but if you been keeping up with me, you know most about it, but you don't know all about it because there's some stuff I didn't say on air. Like my friends know, but everybody don't know. Okay. So let's get into it. This week's meme: you can't come back from every bridge you burn, no matter how well you can swim. All right. Inspiration from this week comes from the Bible verse Mark 12:31. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. A quote that I found interesting. It was on DJ. It was this website I used to follow a long time ago, and it basically would give you it would like show you like your favorite artist or favorite celebrity, and it would like show you like they fits. And it was one with DJ Mustard, and the quote he retweeted me one time and tweeted me back. And it says the quote, "Let every bridge I burn light the way." And then my guest in his profession, and we're gonna get into that today because I think we got a pretty interesting guest. But before we get into that, let's jump into happy hour. All right. So as I explained last week, happy hour is not a time for you to be drunk, But the goal of this segment is more so sit back and because when you go to happy hour, you don't always have to be drunk, right? It's typically the time you sit back, you eat, you go to get you a catch you a deal on. I mean, drinks too, but a lot of times the food and typically people after work or just when they want to meet up with people and they kind of catch up and just kind of discuss what's going on. So this week's happy hour, I'm going to discuss the situation that happened in my last job. Now, a lot of people know because they follow me on Instagram or they know me personally, but I want to tell it on the podcast what happened. And so I'm tied all together with this week's topic. So I got hired at a school last year. Now, the issues that went on weren't the second half of PSA of season 6. It was the first half. Long story short, I had worked at a job, a school, and I started getting snitched on a lot out of nowhere. And I had never been in a work environment like that before. And they were snitching on me left and right. Oh, Mr. Williams in the car. We don't know where he at. Everything I'm doing is like somebody got a magnifying glass. And I'm looking around like, y'all don't see these people doing this, and y'all don't see them. And everybody's just worried about me. So y'all been keeping on me for a long time. So I got a mouth. But I can tell you this. If you know me, you know. If I said it, I own up to it. But I can't own up to something I ain't do. So apparently the comment was made that I went to one of the teachers and I told them, oh, I make more than you and I do less. I did not say that. What I believe I said was, because for those, y'all know I've been an interventionist in the education space. What y'all know, probably said something like, because I know me, I probably said something like, oh, they was like, do you like being an interventionist? And I was like, yeah, as I make more than what I did last year. And I said it's not as strenuous as being a teacher. And I said something to that extent. And they went back and said, oh, I make more and do less. I mean, I guess that's a variation of it, but that's messy. You know what I mean? But that's not the only thing. That's what started it. So any school I've worked at, I've had good rapport, good reputation. Even at one school when I was having some issues, I still was good. But this one, it wasn't like that. It was like stuff. The whole year I kept getting written up, kept getting this, kept getting that, right? So one of my old principals or one of my old people I used to work with, she ended up becoming the principal, hit me up and was like, oh, we hiring over here. I got hired at that new spot that I'm at now, April of last year. And I remember on the last day of school, the principal, who was a male principal, which I thought working at a school, the male principal was going to be like easy breezy. It wasn't. And he was just like, your name is all you have. And, moving forward, I want you to really, pay attention to the things that you do and who you're around and all that good stuff. And I told him, I looked in the face, I said, look, I don't have these issues nowhere else. It's just this school. I don't know whose feathers are ruffled that bad. And I didn't even feel like doing no investigation because I just didn't see the point. But a guy got me out of that hellhole. And but the moral of the story was that was an example of a place where I did not have the best reputation and I didn't leave on good terms with those people. But because I had good relations everywhere else, I could still get a job anywhere else. It's literally one school that didn't like me out of the dozens of. So the point that I'm making is you're not going to always have good relations with everybody. You should strive to. I didn't go in there trying to have beef with nobody. I went in there being cool and I ain't like it. So sometimes people may not like you either. But you got to keep that in the back of your head too. All right. Now, I done been rambling long enough. I got my guest today, y'all. So let me go ahead and introduce him. All right, Steven, what's going on?
Hey, good afternoon.
How you doing today?
Sipping good.
Listen, it's one of them days. So what's been going on? How are you?
Oh, I'm doing awesome. I'm currently here in Vegas working on some projects. Weather's breaking. We're getting into that season. It's been 70s, now down in the 40s, going to jump back up to 70s again. But yeah, I'm not missing winter on the East Coast.
Well, see, Houston, the weather finally broke. So it's like been 70s, 80s like every day now. So But yeah, you know how that goes. So now tell the people, not to introduce you, but I want you to introduce yourself. So tell the people your name, where you from, and then where you live, which you kind of said.
Thank you for having me today, Izzy. My name's Steve Cuoco. I'm a public relations 30-year veteran, award-winning public relations specialist, based out of the New Jersey, New York area, currently in Las Vegas. I own a satellite radio station, Power 98.5. And what else? And I'm an Aries.
Look, I am not Justin LeBoy. I did not ask you to sign, but he gave it anyway. So anybody that, what sign is this? Yeah. All right. So before we get too deep, I do have one question. So can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you became a positioning expert in public relations, branding, and marketing?
Great question. I started when I was 18. Actually, I finished high school when I was 16. Took pre-college classes. Did graduate with my class. I was given that option. Was finished with college about time I was between 18, 19 years old. Started with a private video production company back when we had videotapes, when they were the most popular. And began my career there. And my grandfather taught me at a very young age and said, learn everything that you're passionate about and become someone that that's very hard to compete against. And that's what I did. I learned a lot of things. I went into mental health. I became a grief counselor. I worked with people who struggled with identity crisis, eating disorders, bipolar, smoking, became a clinical hypnotherapist, got my credentials into that, worked in the holistic field, and just did my best to understand what my grandfather was saying. And that was to find a lot of really good mentors and a lot of people from different fields realizing that I'm not going to stay in one lane. I can't stay in one lane. I need to learn about the medical profession, a holistic profession, the entertainment industry, the beauty industry, fashion industry. The main industry that I'm in is entertainment and media. But I've dabbled. I'm going to be 49 this April. So I've had the luxury of being able to have over 30 years to sort out what I want to do.
And not too many people can say that. No. So we definitely give you a round of applause. I wish I had a buzzer, I'd buzz it, but I don't. So I'm gonna give you this. I do have this world's greatest superstar. Got this in Orlando. I'll give you that.
Thank you.
Better for the day. Okay, so then it's kind of probably you're gonna say that kind of inspired it, but I have to ask. So your book, Guided Transformation: Poems, Quotes, and Inspiration, is an international bestseller. Can you tell us about the inspiration behind the book and how it has impacted the work that you do now?
Honestly, most people don't know this. Great question. Is I had dyslexia when I was younger. It's something that runs in my family, my mother's side of the family. But due to environment and just the type of stressors when I was younger, I didn't develop the way that I should have due to, once again, my family, they were addicts. They struggle with drug addiction, alcoholism. And it was the 70s. So a very different life. I was raising my brother at the age of 5. He was a newborn. And I had to learn how to grow up first and be an adult and a brother and a parent to my brother. And sometimes a parent to my own parents, my stepdad. And not realizing until the state took me away.
Oh, okay. And how old were you when that happened?
7.5. December 26th, the day after Christmas, it was either 81 or 82. I was 7.5 at the time. And I was put in foster care. I was in foster care for about 1.5 years, and then I was adopted. And with that, they, when you're in foster care, when you go through the system, they put you under all these tests. I was not diagnosed with bipolar or schizophrenia or none of that. But they did realize that I had dyslexia. And one of the things is that I learned how to read backwards first, to read backwards from the bottom up.
Okay.
Then how most people were to read, like you'll start from the top and then you'll go over. I started from the bottom and I worked my way up, going from left, where most people learn right, It was just the way it was. I was exceptional at breaking codes, uh, figuring out puzzles. If there was an object or something that you could not notice or see, I would figure it out. Like you could have the most distracting mural, or let's say if we're looking at the Mona Lisa, I will notice an imperfection in that painting, whether it's a color, a spot, a wrinkle. It's just how my brain operates. But it ended up coming down to where, because of the distress and duress and everything else, is I had to learn differently as a child. And learning how to read wasn't the primary goal. Learning how to be a child was not the primary goal. It was, as I stated before, growing up and being an adult. So once I was taken out and we learned, I had the help to better understand how I was able to learn and areas to where to improve on. And the main thing was the English language.
Right.
I learned, I grew up in an environment where I was not allowed to talk. I
Mm.
had to be quiet. All of us kids had to. And they were the type of addicts to where when they needed to zone out and escape, they did not want to know there was anything else around, including us kids. So with that being said, like that was my learning experience until later on. And then just realizing, and I did end up growing out of the dyslexia. The doctor did say that that could happen.
Okay.
I
Never knew
I
that.
realized, yeah, you can. Even PTSD, you can age out of that as well. It just depends on what type of environment you're being nurtured in. And it really resonated with me of your story about the job and people coming at you. I went through that as a young kid, not knowing how you grew up, Izzy, but I grew up to where I did not have authority. I did not understand authority. I had to raise, like I said, raise myself. So I get you. And some people, I've had a couple jobs in my past to where I learned my own way of learning, because some people be like, okay, Steven, you got to do this. Here it is. And even though I have a photographic memory and I remember things after I see it once, what I was missing is the care of people. And I don't know if you've gone through this, Izzy, people taking the care to say, you know what, Steven, I want to get to know you. I want to work with you. I want to be part of your world, and I want you to be part of mine.
Right.
70s and 80s and even 90s is, if you remember back of how the 80s was, from our music to our movies and our content, it was very hard. It was aggressive. It was in your face, but that's how we had to grow up no matter what. We had to learn to adapt, whether we had help or not.
Right. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, we not even 20 minutes in. We getting deep already. We ain't even made it to what does this have to do with mental health yet. That's the crazy part.
We
But
are talking
okay.
about mental health.
No, it's my segment. Well, we are. That's the funny part. I'm like, we ain't even got to the segment. We already talking about it. Okay, so I'm gonna ask you a few phrases, and there's no right or wrong answer. I want you to tell me the first thing that comes to mind. Okay, when you hear the phrase public relations, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Relationships. It's a people industry.
When you hear the phrase burn bridges, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Ask me again.
When you hear the phrase burn bridges.
Nothing comes to my mind.
Okay. When you hear the word relationship, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Relationship. Nothing.
All right. This is the first time somebody's ever said nothing's come to their mind. So you just broke another record. All right. So let's get into the definition of public relations. It says the professional maintenance of a favorable public image by a company or the organization or a famous person. Burn bridges means the inability to revert to an earlier state or position. In other words, burning your bridges implies being forced to continue with a specific course of action with no point of return or the provision to reinstate the original. And then relationships, the way in which two or more concepts, objects, or people are connected, or the state of being connected. All right. So let's move into the official segment. What does this have to do with mental health? And for the new people, again, this is the segment where we tie whatever topic we got going on to mental health. We've already started, not even on purpose. And now we're really about to get into it. So, from my sources, it said public relations can play an important role in promoting mental health and well-being, and the following statistics can help illustrate the importance of this work. According to the World Health Organization, 1 in 4 people in the world will be affected by mental or neurological disorders at some point in their lives. It says mental health disorders are a leading cause of disability worldwide, with depression being the single largest contributor to the global disability. Then it says suicide is the second leading cause of death among 15 to 29-year-olds globally. So let's talk about that. So what I like first is it says that public relations in itself, like the job, doesn't necessarily align with mental health, but a person in that position can use their platform to highlight mental health, to bring awareness to certain things. And while you ever done that in the public relations field?
Be more specific.
So like using your platform now, of course, now, but when you were really into public relations, when you had your clients and, did you maybe ask your clients, like, how are you feeling today? Like, and not the typical, how you feeling today? Like really, like, no, really, how are you today? Are you good? Are you mentally there? Have you ever used your platform to spread awareness to any, dyslexia, anything that you maybe have been going through? Went through it, overcome, really. Can't even say went through because you overcame it. Anything like that?
Every day. When I'm on a phone with someone, I always have a natural passion to ask, how do you feel? Like once this interview's done or we get off and I would ask you, Izzy, how do you feel? How did that feel to you?
Okay. Good stuff. So it says maintaining good relationships is important for a variety of reasons. And it says the following statistics help to illustrate the benefits of building and nurturing positive relationships. So I'm going to name these few, and then we're going to kind of give our feedback. And I'm going to allow my boy Steven is like, I agree with that, I don't, or that makes sense. All right. So the first one, according to a study by Harvard University, strong social connections are associated with a 50% increased chance of longevity. Now, there's always a person who doesn't care for people may say something stupid like, well, I don't plan on living that long. Now, with that, I did know some people that would say stuff like that. Like, say, if you did bring a statistic like this to them for whatever reason, or you may say something like me, I took all the time, I want to live to 100. I know a lot of people who be like, I don't want to live that long. They're like, I want to be gone by like 60. I'm like, well, why? Why do you want to die early? You know what I'm saying? What's going on? And unfortunately, I've had friends who are no longer here, and they've made comments like that. And when you say stuff like that, now for me, it's a red flag because it's like, I know one of my friends, again, no longer here. And he made a comment one time. He used to make it all the time. I didn't think that he would say, I don't want to be no 80-year-old man. I just want to be like 50. I'm like, 50? My mom was right now is 58. And I couldn't imagine her saying something like that. So it's just like, it goes back, and I didn't plan on that question of how are you feeling? Like, seriously. And I think that we ask that, but we don't ask it enough. The second one says people who report having satisfying relationships are less likely to experience depression, anxiety, and other mental health problems, according to the American Psychological Association. Okay, so I could see that. But my question to you is, have you noticed that this generation and my generation, the young millennials and even younger, they have this like fetish with being toxic? Have you noticed that?
I think honestly, I see your point of view, Izzy, but even my generation, Gen X, can be toxic and is toxic. Boomers are toxic by keeping people limited. It's like, why don't you just go retire? Let the Gen Z, let the millennials, let the Gen X step forward.
Listen, and you know what's funny? We go back to the happy hour segment. The people that I've noticed who are always telling on people are the older ones. And it's just like, just go home. You've literally been in some of these. Some people have, especially in education, some people have been in schools for literally that same school for 40 years. I could never do that. And I would just see like, how can you be for 40 years? You've watched literally, it's like Grey's Anatomy. You've watched seasons of people, different cast of people come in throughout the years. And it's just like, and you've been there the entire time. You could write a book about your experience at these places. And of course, I'm not saying, trying to take the older people money away. But what I'm saying is like, learn to let stuff go and learn to just, I don't know. It's just, I just hate seeing this, especially in that workplace. I kind of got triggered. I'm not going to lie. Because if we're supposed to be a family, a work family, y'all not doing family stuff. And that's what's just kind of like, I don't know.
Let me ask you this, Izzy. Were you raised by your parents, single parent, or grandparent?
Both, because my parents got a divorce, so I was joint custody.
Okay. You as millennials, and this may sound a little bit like I'm defending you guys, but you guys come from our generation, a Gen X, for the most part. Some of you come from boomers, but for the most part, Gen X. Most Gen X, the way we were raised, and the story that I shared about how I had to grow up so fast. And even if someone doesn't come from a background of a family that has emotional mental health issues or drug or alcohol addiction or abandonment issues, the fact of it is I can say to you that what I know of for a fact is either a single parent or grandparent was raising that child. You guys as millennials had to sort out either directly or indirectly through other family members, cousins, friends, what it meant to build relationships with people, to where my generation had to grow up fast and hard. Your generation had the repercussions of having to figure out, who am I? Because either you've got both parents that are working, you've got mainly grandparents raising you, or divorce situation, which is common. But then the question is where are you retaining that information? How are you absorbing your identification from an adult or a peer? That's a lot of stress. On top of being put into a world where you are told that if you don't wear a certain brand, have a certain pair of shoes, if you don't have the pressures of preparing for college by the time you're 10 or 12, and that you've got to struggle with not only sabotage type of style of personas, or what do they call that one? What is that, Izzy? It's almost like a oh my goodness. What is that? I have that brain fart sometimes. What is that perception of people where they have like an identity crisis, but they create like smoke and mirrors? It's
not narcissist. That's everybody's favorite word right now. Not that. I know what you're talking about. I can't think of the name of it, but it's like
imposter syndrome. That's it.
Oh yeah.
Your generation has a huge problem with imposter syndrome because of your environments.
And it's funny because I did an episode over that like maybe 2 seasons ago, and I kind of want to revisit that. But that's a real thing. It hasn't stopped me, but it definitely, at one point it did at the very beginning, like before the whole podcast thing. But I definitely can see. I know a lot of people personally at this age that's like really struggling with that, and it's just like, the fear of being, found out that you're wrong, or that you're an imposter, or that you're not who you say you are, and all that good stuff. And it's just like, a lot of, like you said, a lot of people have identity crisis at this age, around this time, because their parents want them to be one thing, then they want to be one thing. But in case like my case, like, they kind of got on the bandwagon now. But like, my parents are literally 30 years older than me. I'm 28. So we didn't grow up together. Like how some people, I got some friends whose mamas and daddies was 15, 16. They grew up together. They were well grown by the time they had me. And then I'm the only one. So it's like, and then I get that whole logic of, it's like, you can't really connect because it's like you try, but it's just like we just miss. It's just miss. And it's not anybody's fault. It's just how it is, unfortunately. But I love to see that this generation is kind of pushing back against that and like, going against the grain in a lot of areas.
If to add to that, Izzy, I appreciate your generation and Gen Z. I do understand your point of view about you believing that millennials are entitled. My generation was entitled as well. I grew up entitled at your age, but I grew up entitled. My friends and all of us grew up entitled and angry because we felt abandoned and had to work through a lot of abandonment issues.
Right.
And then on top of, you already know my environment, there are people that had way worse, if not just as much as tumultuous environments, because they were taken from their families or had no connections with their families. I got an opportunity to be adopted and a second chance.
Right.
Most people don't get that. And I was able to be put with a family that wanted me and loved me. I come from a generation where it was extremely hard to place children out of foster care or to get kids adopted. I was in a position to where if it did not work out with my family who took me in, I would have been placed in a group child's home. So those were the pressures and those were the triggers that fueled for whatever it was. I'm going to say this. Dyslexia for me was not a disability, Izzy. Dyslexia was a saving grace because I got to see the world in a way that no one else saw it. And it not only helped me thrive, but it also helped me to survive when I needed to.
It sounded like it. Even when you was telling the story at the beginning, it sounded like a superpower.
I like that.
Okay, so finishing this part off, it says the importance of, maintaining good relationships. So the third one says good relationships can also have positive impacts on physical health, with studies linking strong social connections to reduce risk of chronic conditions such as heart disease, diabetes, and obesity. Now, again, and we all have this. We had this segment called Happy Hour. Unless you're going out with your friends, always eating and drinking and just eating terrible, And like I said on last season, and I've said again, this generation is a little different because, I told my mom, and I said this last season, about how I said that grown man weight tearing these grown woman weight tearing these people up. She's talking about y'all too young for that. It should be like 35. I said, no, it's coming at 25 for some of these people. It's bad. And then the fourth one says strong relationships can also help to reduce stress and promote resilience. A study by Carnegie Mellon University found that people with strong social support systems were able to handle the stress of challenging tasks. Now, out of this, though, you know what I can't stand? I can't stand people who it's like the people that always find something wrong and people holding on to people just because of history. And we saying it's your support system. And I'm at the phase, and I'm at the phase now where I feel like I'd rather be wrong about you. If I get that vibe and get those energies and get those commentaries. I watched a video by Carlos King. That's crazy. I randomly thought about this. And he made a video talking about, as you continue to elevate and rise, pay attention to those people who make those little jokes and those little disses and those comments, and watch yourself when you try to be like, oh, that's just them. That's just how they joke, or that's how they play. They showing you the signs. And with you being in that industry and have dealt with so many different people as far as, these different networks and all that thing, have you seen maybe a client or got a hold of a client where they were starting to rise or had already, was the star? And did you maybe see any of their friends or family start to almost, we hate to say it, turn against them in a sense?
I'm going to honestly say I've had that experience myself.
Okay.
Because to speak for my truth, Izzy, is I have friends and family that believe Steven's going to be okay. Steven knows the right thing to do. We trust what Steven's going to happen. Do I get phone calls checking in? No. Do I get a phone call of asking, hey, you want to go out for coffee or lunch? No. I love my dad and I appreciate my dad, and I understand where my dad sits within himself and who he is as a person. I didn't even get a phone call on Christmas or my birthday from my dad. But I understand my dad without making excuses. It all depends on who you are and whether you're in a victim emotional mindset or are you in a healing emotional mindset. And the scientific medical fact is when people talk about mental health, that's where the potential problem and disconnection is at. And when we think about doctors and pills or certain remedies, is it doesn't begin mental. A scientific fact, everything begins emotional to mental to physical, and then scientific, cosmic, or religious. You have to go back to the emotional root as to where and when did it begin. That's how I resolved the dyslexia within myself. Now, everyone's dyslexia is different. I
Right.
had to learn, was this hereditary or was this environment? Where was the emotional trigger? Environment, or is this hereditary? And I have found, because of my biological family's generational curses with addiction, it was generational. So
Mhm.
it wasn't that it could be pinpoint necessarily. Is this genetically related? No, it was mainly environment triggered.
Mm. Wow.
Because once again, when I was adopted, it alleviated throughout time and years and love and care and support. It alleviated. It still took effort on my part to understand where would I be at emotionally, where it could at times exaggerate my learning process. And I realized that when I was bullied in school, that I had to sit in back of the class in order to have less triggers than if I had a group of kids behind me, knowing that there was or there could be a potential of bullying or harassing. So I had to sit in certain places on a bus, sit in certain places in school. And yeah, like you guys, like bullying is every day. But the difference is, and I'm going to close by saying, and thank you, Izzy, is we had privacy. You guys don't have it. You
At
can't
all.
fart without somebody recording it and putting it on TikTok. You can't be stupid in a club without someone taping it. So I'm going to honestly say, I believe what is exaggerating and exacerbating the entitlement of your generation are your environmental and social stressors, because you have pressures that we did not have. But you not only have people and environment and government stress, you have a whole identification as this. We did not have to deal with that.
Right.
And that's what's making you guys, your generation, having you feel the way that you feel, Izzy.
I believe it. I definitely believe that. Wow. Okay. So, next question. So now you have the ability to identify missed opportunities and design and implement strategic systems for incorporating new revenue streams and profit in current and emerging markets. That's a mouthful. But can you give us an example when you identified a time where it was a missed opportunity and then how you helped one of your clients capitalize on
Oh, wow. I really like this question. That's really, really good.
it?
Really good, Izzy. Very proud of you with that. What would it be? Most recently, and I can only share to a
Right.
certain point,
Yeah.
a client of mine was with a mega multi-million dollar company.
Okay.
We're just going to say athlete.
Yeah.
And we all know athletes are very underpaid. For the most part, they are very underpaid. And depending on what category they're in,
Right.
I'm going to honestly say what I'm proud of is that the, what can I legally share? Let's just put it to you this way. I was able to sit at the table, because the other thing what I do that I don't feel that most agencies or reps or management or PR people do is I have people at the table with me. If you and I are working together, Izzy, you're going to be there. You're going to know what's going on. What is the dialogue? What's the narrative? What's the context?
Right.
I'm absolutely proud of, because I don't like to play the salesman, the manager role, but I will if need be. because I want the best for my client.
Right.
Out of the 2 years that this professional athlete was with this well-known major multi-million-dollar company, I was able to get this client within the first year. I was count my fingers. Over 6 figures. I'm going to honestly say, in comparison to that, to this is quadruple. I'm making that word up, but I mean, it's, if you were to compare, it'd be like, wow, you would.
Yeah.
So it really is, when it comes down to it, Izzy, it's the belief that you have in yourself that I utilize as a publicist with the background in mental health. And being a publicist is very much like being a mental health or emotional mental health worker.
Right.
I look for what can we do to sort things out behind the scenes, to strengthen you, to elevate you, to be able to capitalize that to where we're not manufacturing you. We're taking all the assets, conscious and subconscious, and we're enhancing those. We're empowering that. You're empowering yourself so that we can go ahead and, let's say, take this show to a whole other level, because it's you. It's not the show that's going to make you. You make this show. This
Right.
show is Izzy. And
Right.
that's what my focus is on. And that's when I go into contracts, or when I'm sitting down speaking with networks or other management companies or sports agencies, is I ask questions. How many people ask questions? I don't come in with a bag of papers and throw it down and say, this is what we want, this is what we're going for, and if you don't do this, we're not working out. No, before I break out my assessment, I want to know, why do you want to work with this athlete?
Right.
What is about this athlete that's so special? What is it about this actor or producer or director that made you feel as though they're going to be able to give you what you're looking for, but most importantly, leave room for growth and elevation and bigger
Right.
and better relationships and opportunity? People are wowed because most people are not asked, Izzy, what do you need? What do you think you need? Or what do you think you want? So when I ask the question, what do you need? I'm asking you mentally. When I ask you, what do you want? I'm asking you emotionally. So there are keywords that I use to sort out, to figure out, are you auditory, visual, or emotional? There are other components, but those are the basic: auditory, mental, and emotional.
Okay. All right. That was good. That was a good answer. All right. So let's move on into, again, the newer segment. I challenged that. And in this segment, I'm going to challenge kind of what we're talking about today, just to kind of give it a little. All right. So my first question to you, simple, short. Why do you think it's so hard for people to maintain good relationships with others?
I like how prepared you are. Communication. And that is not a watered down answer. It really is. Let me elaborate. And this was something I had an experience as of yesterday.
Okay. Recent.
It really is understanding when
Okay.
we're sitting at the table, especially business or personal. Are we here as a team, or am I here just for you? And that's what I face in public relations. I don't mind, Izzy, if you say I. But when we get to a point in a conversation and we're supposed to be a team, and I'm not hearing we, or how you're wanting also the best for me, that's a red flag.
Right.
But that's still communication. Now, we could say the problem of communication is, are you, Izzy, not caring enough to ask me questions or to know more about me? Or is the problem with communication is that we really don't have a problem with communication, because you're letting me know it's all about you. And then I've got to make a decision, professional, personal, otherwise, because I know the truth that you're letting me know it is about the Izzy and the Izzy show, not about us working together, of how we can be, where you're inspiring me and I'm inspiring you, and we're working and we're elevating together so we can
Right.
be both an asset for each other. Does that help and answer your question?
No, it answers it perfectly. I mean, you gave an elaborate answer and you gave a short communication, long. I'm trying to see basically what you want. That's it. I mean, it is what it is. It's simple, long. It is what it is. So now it says that some relationships are toxic and should be avoided. And in this case, and I'm going to read, but I just had to throw that in there. In this case, that may be a toxic relationship to somebody where they say, I don't want to deal with nobody else. I don't want to deal with that. You know, that's you. Thank you for telling me who you are. All right, I'm about to bounce. So some people don't want to deal with that. And in the same breath, if I stick around, I know what I'm dealing with. And then with some people, it's a good thing because it's like, I know how you are. And then, of course, I'm going to do an episode later this season about breaking down, dealing with different people in the different levels of friendship. But we'll get to that another day. But it says that while it's important to maintain positive relationships, there are some that should be avoided. According to a blog post by Very Well Mind, toxic relationships can have a negative impact on mental health, leading to feelings of anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem. Some cases may be necessary to cut ties with individuals who constantly bring negativity and toxicity into your life. And this is what I'm adding. This ain't even from the source. People who always bring up your past. And we're going to get to that in a minute. It then says, according to a Harvard Business Review, for example, when team members have high levels of trust and rapport, they may be less likely to challenge each other's ideas and must engage in constructive conflict. Now, this is in a situation, it's a workplace example, but it says that many businesses are looking to attract and build relationships, specifically with millennials and emerging generations. And I agree with that. And it makes sense because it utilizes the youth. In some cases, people trying to puppet master them. But before I go to my next question and then eventually the next segment, I got to go back to what I said about people bringing up your past. If people always highlighting the past, and it's one thing if we reminiscing, it was a good time, that was a great time, but then it's like, oh, remember you used to be like this. And pay attention to the people who do it in public spaces where it's something they trying to embarrass you with. Because I've had that happen. I'd be like, at this age, my poker face, as far as my physical face, ain't there, but my mouth is. So I may not retaliate, but I may just kind of be like, okay. But I don't react in the moment, but I know how to move forward with that. And yeah, that's interesting. How do you go about advising companies when it comes to millennials and emerging generations?
I asked them what they're looking for. Are they trying to shove something down your throat and have you stay a consumer? Are they looking to educate your generation to be able to be leaders to help other generations be leaders? I don't know if that's open-ended or not. Here's a quote here's my point to a quote that I always express. A true master is a student and teacher all at the same time. Are the companies helping you teach and also be great? Or are they trying to have you sell and potentially lose your identity? Because when you lose your identity, you're going to consume.
So before we go into the next segment, I have to ask, because losing your identity is real, especially when that's why I haven't conformed as far as my podcast. I remember when I first started, people say, oh, you should do it like this, you do it like that. I'm like, no, I'm gonna do it like this. I'm gonna go wherever Jesus leads. But my comment to that is, we talked about it earlier, the whole identity crisis thing. Do you feel that some people sell out and they conform and they become this that they don't really want to be because it's making a lot of money, or because, say for instance, one of those good talking car salesman sounding companies, they're coming kind of make them pipe their head up? Because I think everybody needs somebody like you, just from the little time we talk, and they don't have somebody like you, and they have this car selling salesman type company like look, this is the highest you're gonna get, you're not gonna make it that far. Do you think that sometimes that may add to the identity crisis, where years later people kind of had those breakdowns because they're like, dang, I didn't became something I'm not, and look at me now?
I'm just going to be raw and transparent. You go through that every day when you go to school and you're paying taxes for the government. Because if you don't pay your taxes, you're threatened with jail.
Yeah.
If you want to go to banks and you need support, you have to prove that you have some sort of substantial value. But then again, how can you do that if no one's going to give you a chance and trust you to pay back either certain credit or certain loans? When you go to school, you're wondering, okay, do you wear a pair of shoes from the dollar store or do you have to go get those name brand Adidas's or Nikes?
Yeah.
Do you even get the privilege of wearing the same shirt 2 days in a row? Or if someone doesn't realize you went home that night and you felt so good in that favorite comfy shirt and it's Friday morning, it's raining outside or snowing outside, and you're like, you know what? I'm just going to throw on a cardigan today and I'm going to throw on one of my favorite t-shirts because I love it. I'm going to wash it. And then people start talking. Yeah. And
I got my
you're like,
cardigan
this
on.
is, yeah, me too. And then it's like, oh, didn't Izzy just wear that yesterday? Yeah. But do you know that he washed it last night?
Right.
His mom had a load of clothes. She asked him, hey, you need anything washed? You had a couple items, so she washed it. But they will assume you may have come into work dirty or not work, either work or school dirty, lazy. And what's wrong? Is he poor? Does he not have enough clothes? Why
Right.
is he wearing them same shoes 2 days in a row? Why is he wearing that same shirt 2 days in a row? We are inundated with such pressures to where we have to be, we're in fight or flight and on 24/7, to where we have to think about how we look, what we're wearing, how often we wear it, and then being told every day in school, if you fail, you become nothing. If you don't have a certain life or lifestyle, if you don't live in a certain community, you're nothing. You're poor. You're supposed to be a kid and you're living at the mercy of the well-being of what your parents can provide for
Right.
you, and you're being judged and you're not even an adult yet. And then you're being told before you graduate or turn 18, if you don't get a good job, you're nothing. You can't get married. You can't, you may not be able to have kids, and you're going to be at the mercy of the government for the rest of your life.
Right.
And if you don't follow the government's rules, even though you live in the land of the free, your ass is going to be put in jail.
Yikes. All right. So now let's move into the weekly sabbatical. And as we know, this is our time to kind of reflect and that whole spiel. All right. So now with you, question. You've worked with many A-list people. You know that. For those that don't know, he's worked with reality stars from people from NBC to Bravo. And what are some of the challenges you face with representing high profile individuals?
I'm going to say great, really great question. I'm actually excited about this question.
Okay.
I haven't run into a problem
Oh, okay.
personally. Where I do run into a problem, here's my answer. This has never been asked. Are other representatives who represent A-list, B-list, it doesn't matter. Let's say you're an A-list celebrity, Izzy, and you are coming out with a film.
Okay.
We have most people, or when we think of media, don't like it when someone publishes or pushes something on IMDb because it's considered a media page. Essentially, let's say you just did a movie with The Rock. We essentially, by protocol or the standard of whatever you want to call it, I call it BS. You had 2 weeks to work on press media before the film, and then you got 2 weeks after. What doesn't make sense is if you are getting booked and you're looking for time for rest before your film gets done, or when your film gets done, and then you've got red carpets, you've got television interviews, you're flying to New York, you're flying to LA, you're flying to Chicago to get on, the station to be able to be there for it, or unless you're doing video. And then we're thinking 2 weeks after, the hype is basically gone, but the hype is not gone about Izzy Baker. Why is there a problem for people to book their client if it's past 2 weeks when it's all about Izzy Baker, and you always have a story to tell, and there could be something more than just about the film you did with The Rock. Does that help? That's the problem. And I'm saying that from a media perspective, when I want to interview someone, is there are these restrictions of, well, you got to focus on press media 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after. Well, what about the rest of the year?
Right.
I would love to drop something right now, but I so don't want to burn a bridge. But let's just put it this way. We all know that the movie Halloween came out, the last so-called Halloween. I had an opportunity, and I reached out by suggestion that I was in a certain time frame to interview one of the main actors in the film.
Okay.
And I received feedback that because it was 2 weeks after, we couldn't do the interview. But what about your client? Does your client know that I want to interview? Does your client may want to talk about something else than besides the movie? And we usually don't get these answers when from a media perspective or PR perspective.
Mm.
There should not, if when, let's say you work with me, if someone wants to interview Izzy, I'm going to consult you and ask you and say, here's my assessment. Here's my research. I think it would be great for you to be on the show, Izzy. And maybe we can put a pause on so you can focus on whatever you need to do, but we'll keep it on the table maybe from a month from now or 2 months from now. Or let's say you've got a big tour coming up. We'll utilize and keep that in effect.
Right. Okay.
The big A-listers and their reps, unless they have a project coming up, unless there's something major, it is difficult getting them booked. And I don't understand why it has to be like that.
It's interesting to know, but when you think about it, you think about artists before album drops, you think about before a movie, before their reality show premieres, they go on those little press tours and they kind of like go on everything. One of the seasons I did my fake one. I think you got to think like the star before you get there. You have to think it before you actually, come into fruition. But I remember one of the seasons before, I think it was season 4 or season 5. I can't remember. I remember going out my way. I was on before season 5, I was on everybody's podcast, YouTube channel, mental health talk. I was on everybody's stuff, just trying to really get all the eyes to come my way. And not just because of that, because I actually liked the people whose stuff I was on, but it was just kind of putting yourself out there as much as possible. And I might even do a little bit, I might have did a little bit of that before this season, but it was just to get the name going and really get the eyes looking, because then it's going to be that one person who never heard of you who end up loving you after they see you on this show or that interview or whatever. So you just never know. All right. So now we talked about public relations. We talked about good relations. We talked about sometimes you don't. It's okay. You heard my intro story. You're not gonna always have them, but you know how to bounce back when you do have a bad reputation or a bad relation with somebody, and some ones you may have to distance yourself from. But when you talking about young mental health conscious millennials, like my target audience, my people, you at that age, you want to make the healthy choice. You may feel lost at this point in life, which is understandable. I found some ways to maintain good relations with others. It's only like 4 of them. So the first one, it says communicate open and honestly. Good communication is essential for building and maintaining positive relationships. And according to a study by Gallup, employees who feel that their opinions are heard are 4.6 times more likely to feel empowered and perform their best work. And even with that, with communication, it's one thing to be private and it's another thing to be secret. And we may have an episode based centered around that at a later date. But have you ever told, just real quick, have you ever told any of your clients like, hey, don't share that. Keep it to yourself. Maybe.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah.
All right. So the second one is show appreciation and gratitude. According to a study by Greater Good Science Center at UC Berkeley, expressing gratitude can improve relationship satisfaction, deepen relationships, and foster positive emotions. Now, this is from me. It is not deriding to show love to your friends or your supporters. I don't know where this came from, where if you showing love to your friends or hyping them up, that's, oh, you deriding. That's your friend. What are you doing? You're supposed to. When they're not doing it, that's when you need to look at them sideways. The third one, it says prioritize quality time. Spending time together is essential for building and maintaining positive relationships. According to a study by the American Psychological Association, shared leisure activities are associated with higher relationship quality and satisfaction. And even with that, what are y'all spending y'all time doing? Because it may feel good, but it might be toxic. You know what I'm saying? You might be scamming. You might be same thing, stealing. You may be linking up and talking about people. You know what I mean? So we have to, again, that's another episode. We could be here all day. And then the fourth one, it says resolve conflicts constructively. Conflict is inevitable in any relationship. I remember a long time ago, my parents told me, if you don't get into it with this person, y'all don't fall out, y'all not friends. And that don't mean fall out every week, which y'all love to do. That just means like if y'all don't have a disagreement and maybe like, I ain't talking to them today, but and again, I got like 6 episodes from this one episode. But when we get to the one about the layers of friendships, that whole situation of like, it's different layers. Some friends y'all just cool. Y'all not friends like that, but y'all are friends, but just like, we'll be here all day. Anyway, according to the study by Society for Human Resource Management, effective conflict resolution can improve collaboration, creativity, and improve any area that you're in, especially the workplace. So again, the reason, and you work with some of them, so I'm throwing a little dig and you can choose to opt not to answer. But a lot of the reasons these people love conflict and toxicity is because of all of these TV shows, social media, and these reality shows where that's highlighted and actually, in a lot of cases, forced, because you're forced in situations where you don't like this person, or I ain't seen you since I threw a drink on you at the dinner, and now I got to see you again, and it's the next day. And it's just like, I see some of them interviews. I'll be like, wow, they setting y'all up for failure. I mean, it's passing. It's a good grade on their end, but for the people, the mental health. I need to get some more reality stars. I need to interview them so I can, really pry. All right. So, lastly, what do you see as the future of public relations, branding, and marketing, and how do you think businesses should prepare for it?
Really great question. I'm loving this. I'm not used to getting asked questions, honestly. I'm used to giving assessments. Where do I see PR? I'm going to honestly say, as long as I'm alive, and this is the truth, I know as long as I'm alive, as over a 30-year award-winning veteran in this business, and who has been taught and is still learning from exceptional people, public relations will remain at its highest integrity. Outside of myself and my agency, can I be absolutely honest and raw? It's going down a shithole. Because there are people that misunderstand what public relations is. I always say that public relations, media placement, is 1% of PR. The level of PR that I do is like, I would be the House press secretary to the White House. I'm the board of directors. I'm the CEO. I'm Congress. That's the level that I work at. I oversee everything about Izzy Baker.
Okay.
That's my passion. That's my goal. But especially during a pandemic, there are people who have no college education in PR. They may have come from a marketing or advertising background, and they're selling media placements. That's not public relations. That's marketing and advertising. And with that being said, if you want to work with a real publicist like myself, we're going to be all in it and to build great relationships and building blocks, and do it in a very natural, authentic, organic way that meets to you. Just like you, Izzy Baker. Most people who have PR companies, but are really salespeople, as you had put it earlier in the show, that are selling media packages, that's not PR. And you've got to look at what sort of level, because public relations is the artery of everything. Public relations is not, let me try to find something all the time for free. Public relations doesn't mean I'm going to just use TikTok and Instagram and Facebook for my business, or use Instagram as my business website. Public relations is not buying media placements. And where was my thought into that? It's also if you want to be, let's say, Izzy, you want to be an Olympian. You're an Olympic runner and you want to win gold. And even if you've won silver or bronze, or whatever, the fact is you want to win. You've got something, a determination for yourself. And I, as a publicist, am coming in and as your ally. And I'm like, how are you plan on winning that gold, Izzy? And we start talking and we start putting out in the public how exceptional and what you're putting into your training and what you're sacrificing when it comes to nutrition or relationships. Or let's say you had to have your mom babysit your dog for 3 months because you had to go into hard training. And you go out and you win that gold. That's what I do. I help you win that gold. When people do the BS paid media and just focus on the clout of media coverage solely, that's like an Olympic athlete doping. When you pay for media, it's no different than you doping. If someone finds out that an athlete doped and won gold, what do you think is going to happen? They didn't win that legitimately with hard work or anything else. If you, Izzy, are a superstar and you're going to be on television and you're going to maybe co-host with, Ryan Seacrest is going to take a break and you're going to be co-hosting with Kelly. Now it's going to be Kelly and Izzy. Do you want your contract and all the money you could be making earned on merit because of what you've built for yourself? Or are you going to want to buy your status and to tell people that you have integrity, morals, and values, but you didn't earn it? You paid for it, but you gave the perception that you earned it. What do you think is going to happen? I always say leave paid media for the politicians. If you want to be a real actor, producer, director, media, whatever it is, stay away from paid media.
All right. So now we ended off with that part. So now let's move into something a little more fun and the final segment of the day. And this is game time. And this game is called Private Relations. So now I'm going to ask you literally 5 questions, and then I want you to answer them as honest as possible. And it has something to do with your profession. Are you ready?
I'm ready. This is going to be interesting. Okay.
Okay. So, what was the most bizarre request you've ever received from a celebrity client's significant other?
Significant other?
Yes.
Where did you pull that question? A celebrity client significant other. I'm going to honestly say I have not had that experience, but hold on. I have ran into problems with celebrity clients that are minors with the expectations, unrealistic expectations by the parents. And more often than not, it's usually the mother and not the father.
I can believe that. Sounds real Lindsay Lohan-ish. All right. So if you had to come up with a code word for a celebrity's bad behavior, what would it be?
Repeat that again, please.
If you had to come up with a code word for a celebrity's bad behavior, what would it be?
Ooh. Wow. I'm impressed by you, Izzy. These are really, really good.
I appreciate it.
Really good. Wow. Code word. That's a really good one. I've never been in that position where I needed to use a code word. Thank you. Your help. No, you may be preparing me for something. Code word. It'd be like, call. Like, got a phone call. Phone call.
Well, see, here's the thing. So education, right? I have a code word for when like an AP or a principal is coming to do an observation. I tell the kids trip. That's like their word trip. Like, and they kind of like, hey, I tell them get it together. So it's like they know, like, hey, we got to get it together. Okay. Have you ever had?
Honestly, I have not. I'm just saying, like, really, really good, Izzy. That was phenomenal. You're really great at your questions. Go ahead.
Have you ever had to cover up a celebrity client's fashion disaster?
Oh,
yeah, I've seen that in movies. I don't know if that really happens.
It does happen. Even if there's a stylist, not all, I don't understand where and why someone would put anyone in a pair of suit pants and cowboy boots. When I saw that, I'm like, you're paying this person what now?
Right.
Okay.
Well, I have 5 questions. I'm gonna just only do one more. If
All right.
you could give a celebrity client one piece of advice, what would it be?
So what would that be? How do you plan to live your, how do you plan and how do you want to leave your legacy?
Okay. And that's one of those questions where I feel like you could get easily overwhelmed, but that would be one that they would have to like break down. And I learned something recently where it's like when you get those big questions, you kind of like, because you'll get overwhelmed trying to answer it all in one day. You may just kind of break it into layers and list and like, okay, I'm gonna ask like 2 questions, 2 answers to this right now. Come back another day and just kind of leave it kind of open ended. All right. So last thing, and this is just for the audience. Now I'm gonna hold y'all accountable this season. Last season I fell off, and remember 3 winners if you answer the question. So the question challenge for this week: how are your relationships with other people, and what could you do to make them better? So I'm holding you accountable. And yeah, so 3 winners, one person $10, second person 15, the other one 25. So this has been great. Um, Anything you want to add before you go? You know,
I'm
season.
impressed by you. I'm impressed by you. This was one of the best interviews I've had in a long time because I don't know if you know this, but I'm looking to be, if not the first, but to break out from being behind the scenes in front of the camera. I just cast for Big Brother season 25. That's my 17th audition submission.
Oh,
I
congrats.
cast for with 19 shows last year, and I've reached out to every producer, director, and film writer and said, "Listen, put me in your script. Put me in something here." Like, because I stopped, and I don't mind dropping this gem. I stopped acting and modeling when I was 14 and 15 due to a producer who tried to sexually violate me. I
Okay.
reported it. Nothing was done. That is when I made my decision at that age. And I remember praying in my bedroom, looking out of my bedroom window. And we were actually in Atlanta, Marietta, Georgia at the time. My dad just got stationed down there in the military. And God gave me the answer, public relations. I knew what PR was about, but I actually wanted to, was considering, should I be an attorney? When I prayed that Saturday afternoon, looking out my window, looking at the pine trees in the back of my yard, public relations came to my mind because I knew something changed to where I didn't lose the passion of wanting to be in front of the camera and in entertainment. It just dialed down so much that I realized I have friends who are not protected. I was put in a situation, never thought or knew I would be in that situation. And I had to find a way to stand in my own power when no one else would stand behind because they were scared because of
Right.
their jobs or the position. Or here's a minor that was this person, this adult was trying to sexually attack in
Right.
an office or have his way. And it was a male. And with that being said, that is why I chose it. And Steven came knocking back on the door and reminded me over 2 years ago, you remember when you were so passionate you wanted to be a actor and get into television? Just to let you know, that passion never died. It never went away. And in my chest, I just bloomed and opened up. And ever since I've been been doing it, casting every year, every opportunity that I can get. So just to drop a gem to you and to offer to anyone, always speak up for yourself. Never let an opportunity or a person who you think can make or break you change who you are as a person to settle for less and to accept less. And most importantly, to be treated like a piece of garbage. Stand in your power.
Stand in your power, y'all. We gonna end off with that for the day. So thank you for coming on. And next week we even going even harder. PSA signing out. Always remember, keep your head up like your neck hurt. Remember who you are and make your mind up. Don't let it make you.